There are more jobs in the world than you could ever imagine. While many of them may be low-paying bad jobs to have, others are incredibly dangerous. What you don't want to have is the combination of both. On this episode, we'll take a look at the top 10 most dangerous low-paying jobs. Number 10. Iron and steel workers. Iron workers have a number of health hazards to deal with on a daily basis. Reaching and lifting heavy pieces of steel is a daily requirement of the job, which often leads to sore, sprained, or torn muscles. Moving pieces of metal into place that are being held by a crane can lead to cuts, scrapes, and metal shears, leaving the worker unable to work. The most dangerous part of the job is the heights. Workers have to work at weird angles, which can result in falling. Although most work sites require safety harnesses, you'll still be able to fall 10 to 15 feet with the harness on, and some workers take it off when it inhibits their work. $46,000 a year is not a lot for putting your life on the line daily. Number 9. Truck driver. The profession of truck driver combines the worst aspects of bad jobs while only pulling in an average of $34,000 a year. 14 hours a day driving, never being home to actually have a social life or spend time with family makes for a terrible job. Truck drivers are only given one day off a week if they're lucky, which usually ends up with them driving fatigued and sleepy. For this reason, truck drivers have a much higher risk of accident and death while working. On top of this, truck drivers don't have proper access to healthcare and are constantly eating prepackaged food, which has resulted in 86% of truck drivers being obese. Now, if that wasn't enough, truck drivers have to search for a proper place to park their truck and sleep every night. Talk about a bad job. Number 8. Grounds maintenance workers. Now, I'm sure you'd expect low wages for this job, but it not being dangerous, right? Grounds maintenance workers are those people who do all the gardening, mow the lawns, trim trees, all that kind of stuff, usually for homes, businesses, and parks. Grounds maintenance workers have many hazards in their daily work, which can often lead to death. Falling from ladders, falling from trees, dealing with toxic chemicals or fertilizers, high-speed highway collisions are all common daily hazards of a maintenance worker. But the number one danger is the mechanical equipment used. Ride-on lawnmowers, weed whackers, cutting machines, there are all types of different machines used. All these equipment come with their own risks while using them. At just $23,970 a year, not exactly a job worth your time considering the risk. Number 7. Taxi drivers and chauffeurs. I'm sure many of you assumed this would be on the list. Taxi drivers are more likely to die from a homicide than a transportation accident. Now, for someone who's driving all day, that's saying something. Taxi drivers are also at risk of vehicle-related accidents, which is usually the result of driving erratically, as cabbies do. When you have a profession where the money you earn is based on how many passengers you pick up and drop off, you're bound to be in a car accident. The average annual income for a taxi driver is $22,820, which exposes one to more pollution, more risk, and even less pay than a groundskeeper. Number 6. Roofers. Pulling in an average of $35,290, roofers get paid a bit more but have higher risk. Working 20 plus feet off the ground, no safety equipment, usually standing on a sloped surface, depending on the weather, it can also be very slippery. Roofers also have to deal with a bucket of hot tar heated to 525 degrees Fahrenheit. One roofer told a story of how his coworker had a lighter in his pocket, and when he bent over, it fell into the bucket of hot tar and exploded, splashing tar all over his face. He said he's lucky to only have a few scars, but these are the real dangers of roofing. He noted that roofers even fall off the flat roofs because they lose sense of where the edge is. This might be one of those career choices to skip. Number 5. Agricultural workers or farmers. There are a plethora of dangers on a farm. While all farm-related injuries are preventable with proper precautions, that simply isn't how it plays out in real life. Farmers have to endure confined spaces like silos, milk vats, water tanks, and manure pits. Death by nutty log? I think that's probably the last thing I want written on my tombstone. Chemicals like herbicides and pesticides can cause respiratory problems, burns, and poisoning. Electrical dangers include faulty switches, machinery, and power lines. Animals can cause injury from bites, kicks, ramming, trampling, and transmission of infectious diseases. The biggest risk is working with the heavy machinery though. Tractors without rollover protection, power takeoff shafts, augers, combines, chainsaws all pose serious risk. At a measly $18,900, farmers make among the lowest with massive risk. If you get anything from this video, respect your food. Number 4. Refuse and recyclable materials collector, or garbage man, comes in 4th on our list. You might assume the dangers might be from machinery on the trucks, dangerous materials within the bins, possibly animals, but you'd be surprised that these are the least of the concerns of a refuse collector. The biggest danger comes from impatient motorists hitting a garbage man or woman on the way back to the truck. So next time you're behind a garbage truck, wait that extra second for their safety. After all, they are doing a job that most people wouldn't want to do. At a measly $32,930, refuse collectors endure serious workplace risk, which is sadly completely avoidable. Number 3. Extraction workers. Extraction workers are people who work as a rock splitter, quarry worker, and things like that. Their job entails using heavy machinery like jackhammers, bobcats, loaders, wheelbarrows, handcarts, dollies, and other equipment to cut and move rock. The dangers include miscommunication with other workers, immensely sharp rock after it's been cut, trips, falls, injuries moving rock with heavy machinery, working on steep slopes, and respiratory problems from rock or silica dust. The majority of the risk comes from contact with machinery though. There are a lot of moving parts in a rock quarry and you don't want to be on the receiving end of any one of them. At just $38,810, not exactly the price you should be putting your life on the line for. Number 2. Logging worker. Logging workers endure some of the most dangerous workplace conditions. Falling trees and machinery injuries are the greatest risk factors, but there are numerous others. Cables that tie trees together sometimes snap, machines moving trees can be very dangerous to be around, and driving a logging truck all come with serious risk. Often workers drive too fast and their load tips over. Sometimes helicopters are used to pick up trees and fly them to the processing area. One brave person has the job of running in after the helicopter has dropped its line and hooking that line to the tied bundle of trees. They then have seconds to run away from the trees as they're being picked up by the helicopter. There is serious risk of the line snapping, trees falling, and risk for the pilot. If there's bad weather, it can be impossible to fly a chopper with 25,000 pounds hanging from it. $33,630 is hardly enough for a life-threatening job, but at least you get fresh air every day. Number 1. Commercial fishermen. Commercial fishermen have the most dangerous job at a low wage. I'm sure you've seen or heard of shows like Deadliest Catch. The reason it's so exciting is the danger involved. Crab fishermen have to deal with temperatures as low as -39 degrees while trying to manage crab traps in icy cold waters. If you fall off the boat, there's a good chance you're going to perish as the water temperatures are so low and the waves are so rough, you don't stand much of a chance. Huge 40-foot waves are known to hit boats, which often wash fishermen right off the deck. You can get hit by a crab cage or have your leg wrapped by a rope and pulled right off the boat, or have limbs dismembered. There isn't anything safe about the fishing industry. It's poorly regulated and has very low standards of safety that are not enforced. Fishing giant fish like swordfish not only have great risks involved, but also takes a handful of people to pull one aboard. And once aboard the ship, it can flail and cut or kill you with its sword or teeth. Another major downside of being a commercial fisherman is the long 16 to 21 hour shifts and being at sea for months. You can't establish friends, see family, and your only human interaction is with the few fishermen around you. At a measly $33,430, this is the number 1 career choice you should avoid. What do you guys think about these jobs? Have you done any of these jobs? Do you currently do one? Let us know in the comments below. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you like the content, hit that subscribe button. Why don't you join the notification squad by hitting that bell button, turn on notifications, and until the next one, have a good one.